keep them as short and sweet, I promise. It's only 1,500 words mine. It's all about Jim. No, I'm only kidding. If we could... Sorry? Yes, absolutely. So we'll start with the Chief Executive. Eddie, over to you.
Thanks, Provost. Provost, elected members, today marks the last meeting in the life of this council. Although, as Councillor Mayor has pointed out, we're working right to the end. There's still a cabinet and a governance and scrutiny to come. But on behalf of the council management team and all our employees, I'm really pleased to have the opportunity to thank you, to thank all the elected members for the constructive way in which we've been able to work together for the benefit of East Ayrshire's communities throughout the past 5 years. I think we all know when we go out with East Ayrshire, the relationships that we have, are strong and they're positive here. And even when, people disagree, you can disagree in a way that isn't got acrimony in it. You can actually do that still, with dignity. We can all be very proud of the excellent member-officer relationships we have in East Ayrshire. I think that comes from mutual trust, respect and courtesy. But most of all, it comes from that shared purpose that we want to deliver the best for the people out there in their communities. That obviously has never been more true than in the past 2 years, as together we've sought to respond and mitigate against the impact of the pandemic. When we now look, I think when I wrote a piece last week, it was 355 people that had died in East Ayrshire. It's now over 360 people that have died in East Ayrshire with a diagnosis of COVID. Not for a second, when we started, this 5 years ago, in terms of this, council would imagine we'd be sitting here saying the types of things. But in that very short period of time, in order to maintain essential services, to transform the way we worked, it had to change how we deliver some services, making difficult decisions about standing down others. But we were able to do that, knowing we had, your full support. Everything from, how we do health and care, how we do waste, how we do some of the things that would be normally seen as backroom, but they became essential, how we get grants out to businesses and to individuals, was just the things that we had to do immediately. And doing that together was because of the relationships we had. And of course, in meetings, Provost mentioned at the start, it was good to see people in the chamber, but we've had to adapt to online and hybrid meetings. And I think if we all remember back 2 years ago, what we were trying to do in phones and then try to do things in VScene, and still it's not perfect, we know, but we're getting there. And a huge thank to the IT teams and the way we've been able to do this. I mean, we can of course reflect, but we also need to look to the future too. And we do have the, our election coming up, and some of our elected members have decided not to stand for re-election in May, and they will be missed. So I know others will mention them too, but I wanted to just say leaving us and our thanks and our very best wishes for the future. Councillor Fiona Campbell, Councillor John Campbell, Councillor Helen Coffey, Councillor Elaine Dunwoody, Councillor Tom Cook, Councillor Gordon Jenkins, Councillor John Knapp, Councillor Neil McGee, Councillor Jim Roberts, Councillor Lena Whittam and Councillor Walter Young. Together, they make a staggering 173 years of service as councillors, together for that. So a huge thank you to all you've done for the people of East Ayrshire. It really has been an honour and a pleasure to work for you and with you. Provost members, again, an end of an era comes round every 5 years, and we arranged to take a photo to take of all members following today's meeting. I think there might even be a sandwich. Andrew Kennedy's getting back to me, come back in here, and we'll do that when we have these extended meetings. I look forward in the weeks before the election to have the opportunity to say a more personal farewell to those who will be leaving us. But for now, my thanks and good wishes to you all.
Thank you, Eddie. Leader of the Opposition, Councillor John McGee.
Right. Thanks, Provost. And just to endorse Eddie's words regarding the pandemic and the sad loss of life during this last 2 years in our area. We come to the last council meeting of a 5-year term, and a strange term with the pandemic taking up these last 2 years, changing the known landscape and forcing us all to rethink how we do things. And thanks to some great innovation and endeavours by officers of the council at all levels, we have managed to ensure some very good outcomes for our residents. A number of councillors are standing down across the parties, and I wish Gordon Jenkins, Helen Coffey, Tom Cook, Fiona Campbell, John Campbell, Jim Roberts, Walter Young and Elena Whittam all the very best for the future, and lang may your lum reek. Whilst this farewell may not be the life or death or emotional or national occasion of La Passionara's speech at the farewell of the International Brigades on the 28th October 1938 in Barcelona, it is nonetheless a fond farewell to John Knapp, Elaine Dinwiddie, Neil McGee and George Mayer. John Knapp, previously councillor with Kilmarnock and Loudoun District Council, was elected at a by-election, I believe, in Onfank in 1987 and retained the seat later on, and since 1995 has been re-elected on 6 occasions. I have known John Knapp for many years. In fact, one night the only way I could get him to go out my house was to agree to stand as a Labour candidate for Ward 3, Comores and Stewart and South. Among the many positions John held was Deputy Leader of East Ayrshire Council, and along with former Labour councillor Gordon Cree, they're almost part of the furniture, or as some would say, the Statler and Waldorf of London Road. Elaine Dinwiddie was first elected in 1999 and re-elected on 4 further occasions. I know Elaine was very proud of the work done to have St Saviour's and Patna Primary on the one campus. A good colleague who knows her own mind and calls it as she sees it. Neil McGee was elected in 2003 and he would say himself immersed in the third sector. And if you have never heard of the Auchinleck Community Development Initiative, or the ACDI, then you haven't heard Neil McGee. Always talking up his community, a lover of music, fantastic bowler, gardener, and a good colleague and a fabulous deputy leader of the Labour group. George Mayer, he'd served his sentence with 39 years in the council with environmental health, first elected in 2012 and a fine group secretary and the chair of governance and scrutiny. Like myself, a big Kelly fan. All 4 of you will be a sair miss, and to quote Dolores Ibiruru, forever known as La Passionara, you are history, you are legend, and I wish you all good health and happiness of the future. Thank you.
Councillor Cook as leader of the Conservative group.
Provost, Chief Executive, elected members, officers, friends. Well, that's it then. We've got there. As we rapidly approach the end of another council term, and what will be my last one, I cannot help but think back over my many years as a councillor, 15 in fact. In each of my 3 terms, there's been a defining moment when things suddenly changed. During my first term, it was all going well until an announcement in 2009 that the Johnnie Walker bottling plant was closing. Then in my second term, we had the liquidation of the open cast coal companies in 2013, and we've just heard that we're almost finishing the restoration on these ones. But both of these events focused all our minds to protect jobs and support people. However, these pale into insignificance to what hit us in 2020. The COVID pandemic has had a major impact not only on this council, but on the world in general. There could be no one in this room today who has not been affected by it, losing a friend, work colleague or family member, and our thoughts are with all of them. But what impressed me was the way this council and our communities rallied round to support each other. Barriers were broken down, job descriptions put aside, and everyone pulled together to continue to deliver services and ensure people were supported, cared for and provided with food and medicine. If the past 2 years have taught us anything, it is that in East Ayrshire we have a strong community spirit and can adapt to whatever obstacles we come across. Much of what we learned as a council during this time has now become embedded in the way we now work through transformation strategy. Working practices have changed, service improvements have been made and our workforce has been empowered. I believe that this council is in a much stronger position than it was when I was first elected, and I would like to think that in some way I've contributed to that change. But enough of the past, it's time to look forward to a life where we learn to live and adapt with COVID, a life with a new group of councillors and an updated corporate and strategic plan. I, of course, will not be part of that new council, having decided that it's time to pursue other interests. But before I go, there's a number of people I would like to thank. Firstly, my entire group of Conservative councillors for their support throughout the past 5 years. They've stuck by me through thick and thin, and I much appreciate all their endeavours. Secondly, the Member Services team, particularly my Secretary, Susan Downey, for making sure that my diary is kept up to date and that it was always in the right place at the right time with the right papers, and that sometimes wasn't easy for her. But not to forget, of course, Robert Waters and his team for actually getting me to the right place and back again. I'd also like to thank all members and officers of the numerous committees I've chaired and thank them for their respect, support and advice. It would be remiss of me not to mention my fellow group leaders who have shown respect and worked in the spirit of cooperation to ensure that as a council we deliver a first-class service to the people who elected us. It's not to say that we don't have our political differences, but we all, and I'm sure I speak for all councillors, wish to improve the lives of the people we serve. Turning now to the officers, our Chief Executive, Eddie Fraser, has had a baptism of fire coming into post midway through the pandemic, but he's risen to that challenge that he was presented with admirably. Eddie, thanks for your leadership and support. Then there's the irrepressible Deputy Chief Executive, Katie Kelly, whose driving enthusiasm never ceases to amaze. Katie always seems to pop up everywhere with new ideas and initiatives to drive the council forward. She's always on hand to provide advice and support to elected members and help them carry out their duties, so thank you, Katie. I'm not going to try and name all the officers who've helped and advised me through the years. I'd be here all day, and I think we've been probably long enough by now. But one I do want to mention is Joe McLaughlin, who has picked up where Alec McPhee left off, keeping a tight rein on the council money and advising elected members, including myself, at budget times and how to get the best value for the money we have. So thanks, Joe, and all the other officers and staff I've been involved with through the years. I'd also like to thank both Provost Douglas and his predecessor, Councillor Jim Todd, for the way they have handled council meetings, ensuring that everyone gets a fair chance to express their views, and I think that was demonstrated this morning. There's one further person I need to mention, and that's my wife Janice, for her support over the past 15 years. Putting up with phone calls and doorbell ringing at all times of the day and me being out on several nights each week on council business has been a stress. So finally, many of you know, like me, are not seeking re-election, and I wish you well in whatever you may do in the future. I'm not going to name them all, they've already been named today. To those of you who are standing again, I wish you good luck. Some I wish a bit more luck than others on the 5th of May. And I'm sure that whatever the outcome of the election, and I know what I would like to happen, but I'm making no predictions, I'm sure that the East Ayrshire Council will continue to deliver a first-class service to all the residents within its boundaries. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Tom. Over to Councillor Dougie Reid, Leader of the Council.
Thanks, Provost. Thanks, members. Thanks, everyone. Just to go over the last 5 years, I'll try and be brief, but I think, just the major events that we faced, one very local, as we saw, coal was just smouldering out, but then we were hit with COVID and the challenges that had. Who would have thought that was going to be happening in the next, taking over our lives and the way we did things. And now we've got this conflict in Ukraine, which is concentrating the minds of everybody. With all the global powers stepping up and the horrors that we see in TV, we can see a terrifying repeat of what's been described as a war on autocracy, which for me in local government is the true sense of democracy, and it's important that local government represents democracy across the planet, wherever we serve it, and we continue to represent our people and listen to people as best that we can. For someone that was born during the Cuban Missile Crisis 60 years ago, who would have thought that we'd be facing possible the threat of nuclear war would be actually something that people were seriously talking about. So these are real frightening, unprecedented times. But as with COVID, when we saw our communities deliver and step up, we're seeing it once again as they did through the pandemic. Once again, as I had discussions with Eddie yesterday, we've heard that 21 families are looking to take refugees from Ukraine. I even had a phone call, Jim will vouch, 5 to 10 from somebody from the Knockentibber Residents Association at the village wanted to adopt a family all to their own. So we can see out there our communities are really stepping up our faith groups, our non-faith groups are really looking to see what we can do to help those vulnerable Ukrainian families. And once again, if evidence was needed, local government is the key to service delivery and to democracy itself. As Tom said, and John and others have said, the Council has worked well when we work together to support our communities. Community empowerment isn't just lip service, as the 60 or so community asset transfers absolutely shows. Provost mentioned Take a Bowie right at the start. We've seen the opening of a centre stage, Netherthurd Community Garden. There's so many projects out there where citizens so active are putting something back into their communities, and that's something that this council has led from. You know, I think it's a leading authority right across Scotland in doing that, and rightly so recognised as such. We've seen a lot of changes internally in the last 5 years, none more so than the Chief Executive, who's filled the previous Chief Executive's shoes quite comfortably. It has been suggested that Eddie has learned rather quickly that the devil does wear Prada. But even that won't surpass the colourful attitude that our vibrant Deputy Chief Executive has as well at Eddie's hand. We've also seen major changes in the management team. Tom mentioned Joe McLaughlin, who's absolutely led on from Alec McPhee, keeping us in terms of good financial stewardship. But we've also seen Craig McArthur, who I would say is going to hopefully help keep the Ayrshire and Arran Health Board in good financial stewardship. And my goodness, it needs it. So some good appointments there. And we saw David McDowell, who did a great job in terms of the coal, but has stepped up to. We've got an entirely new, quite a new management team. Most of them, a lot of them, we've grown our own talent, and that's great to see that come through. And there's a great legacy, but we'll be missing some of these people that we've seen. Carol, Bob, just too many care. We know who they are. The people, they're the go-to people in this authority, and they will be missed. The new council faces vast challenges: the economy, the consequences of Brexit, rising fuel costs, and a country that exports over 40% of its energy, has the highest tariffs, the worst weather, is completely unacceptable. And once again, our council is trying to help our communities and people who have the dire choice of heat or eat. That to me is unacceptable, and something the new council hopefully will continue to drive changes to make that doesn't happen, and mitigate where we can to the members of our communities. Members, just maybe to mention others have mentioned the dozen councillors who are retiring. A dozen members are all, I would say, good eggs. Just going through them down the wards, just maybe a wee word about them all. We've got Gordon Jenkins as an academic, someone who's used to logic, just must have really wondered what he'd walked into, and sometimes some of the decisions that we make here in the council just completely defy logic.
I'm going to write a book today. It's called Gullible's Travails.
Helen Coffey, who's been the last of the Coffey dynasty locally, who's from our two brothers who've been here since 1986 or 87, I can't remember exactly, but certainly be sadly missed. And I think Helen, in terms of having to look after the challenges that face many of us in elected office, we've had huge caring responsibilities, and my goodness, Helen has had to come across and challenge those massive care responsibilities that she had, and been an active member of this council, and we're glad to see that. As well as the next one, I'm going to I'm just going to do them in order. So Tom, who's been deputy to the leader of the council, chair of the licensing board since I can remember, and also the chair of the police and fire, and of course leader of the Conservative group for I think 15 years, Tom. And it's been really great to work with you, Tom, and just absolutely puts community first and puts East Ayrshire first. And I think you've served this council and the community well. And just when you're retiring, and maybe not a lot of people know that, Tom and I share a passion. We were previously disc jockeys, and maybe there's an opportunity now that plastic has made his return, that Janice can dust down all the LPs, return the discs, that maybe he can get around the community and reignite your career as a disc jockey, Tom, after you're finished.
Still got them in the loft.
Still got them in okay, the next one I'll mention is the two Campbells. We mentioned the coffee dynasty. It's maybe not quite as long, but quite active as the Campbells. The Campbells are not coming, the Campbells are leaving. For all. As the song says, John, who's been with us nearly 20 years, has been a great representative of his community, and a great exponent of Johnny Walker. Well, Johnny Walker's left. John continues to stride on, and it will be striding on shortly, I'm quite sure, many years to come. And Fiona will be enjoying retirement with her dog, Teddy. He'll be kept busy. I don't know if that's a good thing for Teddy or no, but he'll be going out for more walks for his honour. And Fiona's really contributed a lot in education. And just another wee word for the members of Ward 4 who may be remain or may not be, you better get that Kruger Road junction done, or else you'll have ex-councillor Campbell on your back. John Knapp, who I've known for years, and has been a great servant to local government, almost 40 years a member, and I think, that's a great effort, John, and we know that whether it was North West or South East, you've represented your communities in Kilmarnock very well, and I'd like to make personal tribute to that. And I think it's worth a wee round of applause, actually. Elena Whittam, our colleague from the Irvine Valley, she's stepped up well. She's already gained the vice chair of the local government committee, and we hope she doesn't forget us in the local government committee when it comes to budgets. And we'll be quite sure, I'm pretty sure, reminding her of just some of the challenges local government face as well. Trying to get through everybody. I'm sorry if I'm taking too much time, but so many people I've known here want to kind of pay a wee bit mention. George Mayer, who'd have thought when I was a boy, just started local government wearing algo, going about in George's back catcher van when he was the environmental health officer, got the unions. It would still be some 40 years later, still in the council chamber, discussing trying to improve local government. Great Kelly fan. I hope you have a great retirement, George, and enjoy. I know you'll not be very far from Goshen. The only time probably is going to rugby party. You maybe leave it, but I hope you'll be happy in your retirement. Jim Roberts. What can I say about Jim Roberts? He's represented minority as well. That'd be Ayr United. And who'd have believed when he started the council, a real anti-establishment figure who couldn't agree with anything, has been the bastion of the establishment himself as he leaves. Jim, we know that you'll continue to have an active life, whether it's skiing or scuba diving, things that I can't, I'm not very good at, but I think you'll be continuing to do that and keep us on check from afar. And we wish you all the best, Jim. Neil McGee, another one of the Prestwick Mafia, like Jim Roberts. We know that your heart's totally knocking like, and I think the number of things that you're involved in nearly knocking like, you'll have plenty of work to do with ACDI and all the other things that you're involved with, and looking at the Talbot going from strength to strength as well. Also get Elaine Dinwoody. You've served quite a few years as well, Elaine, and so's your husband. And together with Bob McCulloch, as we know, it's leaving, I think Pat is now going to become Ayrshire's #1 retirement village. But one will keep you in check. Can I just say to last but not least, Walter. Walter, you're going, but I think, in the words of Sir Elton John, who said in his song "The Yellow Brick Road," "Goodbye Yellow Brick Road," you can't take me from your penthouse. I'm going back to my plough. I think that's very much appropriate for Walter, taking advice of Sir Elton. Members, can I just thank everybody, all parties. I'm not prolonging this any further, but you've all been a great support personally and politically in driving somebody that make me absolutely proud to be the leader of this council. And thank you all very much indeed. And hopefully the new council, whoever it may be, can go from strength to strength. And well done to you all.
Thank you, Dougie. Members, as we bring this council term to a close, I'd like to thank you all for your support during my time as Provost. It may have been a short time, but I've thoroughly enjoyed serving as your Provost and getting to meet the amazing groups, communities and people who make up East Ayrshire. This council is made up of very many diverse communities, and I would argue that myself and especially my predecessor Jim Todd represent that diversity in different ways, but with a commitment to always have the people of East Ayrshire at our heart. And as in that spirit, I have tried to carry out the role of Provost. With a significant number of members choosing not to seek re-election, I thought I would say a few words about each of you and their contribution to this council. In Ward 1, I know Gordon Jenkins is not returning, and I got to know Gordon probably better out with the council than in the council through his role as chair of No One Dies Alone Ayrshire. Colleagues will certainly miss you, as the Alnwick Ward councillors are certainly quite a close team. So I wish you all the best for your retirement, Gordon. In Ward 2, Helen Coffey is standing down, and I think since the first time since 1984, there won't be a coffee in the ballot paper in the north of Kilmarnock. I've known Helen probably since just before she joined the council in 2006, but I need to let you all into a secret. And Helen probably doesn't know this either, so I'm going to let you into this secret. When I was elected in 2017 and found myself and thrown into the deep end as chair of GNS, I used to use Helen as a barometer of members' patience during meetings. Helen, I hope you're still there. You're a bit like me, your face gives you away. And if things are taking too long, Helen had a kind of certain facial expression that you could tell that time to move on. And I have to say, I've really missed not having that barometer of members' patience in the kind of virtual setting that we've got, in the hybrid setting that we've got now. I wish you a long and happy retirement, Helen, and I send my love and best wishes to Kerry too, and I look forward to hearing from you both as to how life treats you after East Ayrshire. In Ward 3, Tom Cook retires after serving for 15 years and having been Conservative Group Leader for that entire time. He was Deputy Leader of the Council for 5 years during the SNP Conservative Coalition Administration from 2012 to 2017. And a past chair, I think, of GNS, weren't you, as well? You've been chair of licensing and the current Police, Fire and Rescue Committee chair, and also serving in the Cabinet, I think, throughout your time. So always a gentleman with an inquisitive mind, and I know that you will be genuinely missed across the political spectrum of this council. In Ward 4, the formidable Campbell duo are leaving us to enjoy retirement. I'm thinking of the Billy Connolly sketch where he mentions, you know, the musical appreciation. So the Campbell's farewell from the Red Castle is maybe quite fitting in this one. I've known John Campbell for more years than I can probably remember, and he's definitely a real Kent face in Kilmarnock. As a former publican and Johnny Walker's employee, it is no wonder John knows everyone and everyone knows John. And a bit like Councillor Coffey, he also has a face or a wee check at the watch when things are going for too long. John, I'll miss your wise counsel, and maybe we'll finally get a chance to get a wee off at the club now that you're retired. And I'm sure Mary will be delighted to have you around the house a wee bit more. Said no one ever. Fiona, I'll miss our chats and putting the world to rights and working together to be the bane of many an officer in East Ayrshire when they realise that Team Ward 4 are united on an issue. I don't think any other education spokesperson in this authority will have interviewed so many potential head teachers in their time in office. So rest assured your legacy will be long-standing. That, along with the fountain in K Park Pond. I'll let you into another secret that many of you thought that the term Fiona's Fountain related to our former Chief Executive, Fiona Lees, but I can exclusively reveal that then definitely it is named after Councillor Fiona Campbell. In you come, Fiona. My friend, comrade John Knapp is retiring after serving this council since its inception and having served in Kilmarnock and Loudoun District Council beforehand since 1987, representing Onthank and then regaining his seat in the 1995 East Ayrshire Council election. John then went on to represent Belfield in 1999 and latterly Kilmarnock South since 2007. With a total of, I think, 32 years service, the people of Kilmarnock, his length of service is unmatched by any other councillor in this chamber. And apart from, of course, Councillor Reid, who is slowly catching up with him, and if returned, will surpass that in the next election. John is another incredibly well-kent face, and I wish him a long and happy retirement with Margaret and the grandkids. I'm sure, again, Margaret will love having you about the house, John. You'll have odd jobs to do and grand wains to watch. Ward 6 sees 2 members leaving us, with Councillor Lena Whittam on to Pastors New at Holyrood, representing the Carrick, Cumnock and Doon Valley constituency since last May. I'm confident that Elena will remain a champion for this council and for local government in general, because if she isn't, we'll certainly all be reminding her of that, I'm sure. And I would also say that George Mayer leaves us after 10 years service to Irvine Valley, but a lifetime of public service throughout his working life. Many of you will know George is a keen Kelly fan and often found at Rugby Park. But he's also known to frequent another legendary Kilmarnock establishment of Cafe Da Vinci. And I'm sure I'll bump into yourself and Nancy on a Friday night, usually followed by Councillor John McGee. Talking of McGee's, Auchinleck will surely miss their man in the council when Neil McGee retires at the election. Having served Auchinleck since 2003 and the wider Ballochmyle ward since 2007, I am sure meetings of this council won't be the same without a mention of the third sector or ACDI, like ACDC. Well, I'm sure he would mention them as well. And I say that because you're actually a genuine champion of the third sector, and I think that will be definitely missed. Neil, I look forward to seeing you at Blair Park, and hopefully my beloved Hereford United will beat the Talbot in home turf, but we'll see about that. Ward 7 is also seeing 2 sitting councillors retire, with Councillor Jim Roberts also standing down. And I'm going to be nice to you first of all, Jim. In my opinion, Jim asks some of the best questions and has made some of the best interventions in debate in this council. He's not afraid to criticise, and he's certainly not afraid to ask certain questions. Jim is also good-humoured, loves a joke, and loves to give folk a nickname. So, Jim, I can assure you that our Baz and my deputy, Diamond Sal, wish you a very long and happy retirement. In Ward 8, Walter Young is returning to the family business of farming full-time after 5 years serving Cumnock and New Cumnock Ward. Between council meetings, Walter is often found need-eating cows and sheep. I'll leave it at just cows and sheep, nothing else. So I'm sure by retiring from the council, we'll give you a wee bit more time to work on your collection of vintage cars, and I look forward to coming down and maybe seeing some of them. Last but by no means least is Elaine Dinwiddie, who has served Patton and Dalrymple since 1999 and the wider Doon Valley ward since 2007. After nearly a quarter of a century, Elaine is retiring from the council, and I'm sure a few holidays and spending time with the grandkids will be on the agenda. Elaine is a passionate defender of the Doon Valley communities, and I know her passion for those communities will definitely serve long into retirement. Members, it leaves me now to thank the Chief Exec and his fantastic team of officers who make sure East Ayrshire Council runs as smoothly as possible. There are too many to name individually, but please know we do all appreciate your efforts and the often unseen work that goes on our behalf and on behalf of our communities. Finally, as we bring this last session of East Ayrshire Council to a close, my last as your provost, can I wish all those members seeking re-election the very best of luck. We have our own political differences, but I have no doubt whatsoever that every single one of us are here because we're trying to do the best for our communities. And with that, I wish you the very best of luck. Members, 30 minutes time, we're going to have some photographs. So if any members are coming in from out with, if they can join us in about 30 minutes. But Neil McGee wants the last word.
As ever, Provost, thanks very much. I'll keep it very brief, but I've been desperate to give you this poem
that has
Oh,
been in
I've
my
heard about it.
brain for 30 years. It's a wonderful wee poem. It's written in Old Scots. So if you don't get some of the words, just ask after. It's called Frogs in the Third Sector. No, it's no. It's called The Puddock, which for people who don't get it, a puddock's a frog. Anyway, I'll leave the actions to some other time. The puddock he sat by the Lochan's brim, and he thocht there was never a puddle at him. He sat in his hurdies and waggled his legs and cocked his head as he glowered through the segs. The bigsy wee crater was feeling that prude. He gaped at his mouth and he croaked out loud. Can yous all like to see a fine puddock, quo he? You'll ne'er, I'll swear, get one better than me. I've families and wives and a weel-plenished hame. We drink for my thrapple and meat for my wame. The lassies aye thocht me a fine bonny chiel, and I ken I'm a real fancy singer as well. I'm no going to blow, but the truth I maun tell, I believe I'm the very McPuddock himself. But a hern was hungry and needed to sup, so he nabbit the puddock and gulloped him up. Sin wrinkled his feathers, aye, poor thing, quo he, but puddocks is no what they used to be. In the end, it's a wee moral lesson in not to stand in.
Members, with that additional intervention, bring the meeting to a close, and we've got, oh yes, of course we do, we've got gifts for members that are departing. So if you're leaving us and you're here, if you want to follow up, we'll start calling out the names. Thank you. Members, thank you. John Knapp.
A couple of things now. To give what's the why is there? I think he must have been sheet done it. His fare was a staunch Labour man. He worked beside me into. And I've got to say, as far as officers not concerned, can be accused failing to bring in reasonable officers there. That's the officers' idea. So thanks for the support I've had in behalf of the people who I represent. People assistance. I need support.
Councillor Jenkins. Councillor Coffey, but she's not with us in the chambers today. Councillor Cook. Councillor Fiona Campbell, who's unfortunately not with us today in the chambers, and Councillor John Campbell.
We'll get him again.
Councillor Knapp.
Go on.